Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to get into the hidden psychology behind why we say yes to things, even when everything inside us is screaming no. Now, this is a pretty wild confession, right? Especially since it's from Dr. Robert Cialdini, who is the world's expert on influence and persuasion. He literally spent his entire career studying this stuff precisely because, in his own words, he was just a total sucker for anyone with a good sales pitch. So this sets up a huge puzzle. What is it that makes us comply with people? To figure it out, Cialdini basically went undercover. He joined sales teams, fundraising organizations, you name it, all to learn their secrets from the inside out. And what he discovered was fascinating. The answer isn't really about logic or weighing the pros and cons. Nope, it's all about the automatic shortcuts our brains have developed to deal with, the absolute chaos of modern life. Cialdini has a great name for these shortcuts: click, run, responses. Just think of it like an old-school tape recorder. A specific trigger, that's the click, presses the play button, and a whole sequence of behaviors just runs automatically. That's the run. And you see these triggers everywhere in nature. For example, a male robin will go absolutely nuts and attack a simple clump of red feathers because its brain is programmed to see red feathers and think rival. That red color is the click. Well, it turns out we humans have our own versions of this. Okay, get this. In one famous study, a researcher tried to cut in line for a copy machine. When she just asked, about 60% of people said okay. But when she added one simple word, because, like, can I cut because I have to make copies? Compliance just shot up to an incredible 94%. The word because was the trigger, even though the reason was completely pointless. So here's the crucial takeaway. This doesn't mean we're dumb. It just means we're busy. We are so overloaded with information that we have to rely on these shortcuts. And most of the time, they work great. But they also make us really vulnerable. Now, Cialdini actually mapped out 6 of these big weapons of influence. We don't have time to go into all of them today, like the power of authority or liking, but we are going to dive into 3 of the most powerful ones, starting with the rule of reciprocity. You know this feeling. It's wired into us. If someone does you a favor, you feel this deep, almost uncomfortable need to pay them back. And that sense of obligation can be a powerful tool to get you to agree to things you'd normally say no to. Now, this rule can be turned into a weapon with a technique called rejection, then retreat. It's a true masterclass in manipulation. You start by asking for something huge, something you know they'll reject. Then you back down to a smaller request, which, by the way, is what you wanted all along. The other person sees you making a concession and feels like they have to return the favor by, you guessed it, saying yes. And this isn't just theory. This tactic was famously used to get the Watergate break-in approved. The first proposal was this insane $1 million plan with kidnapping and all sorts of crazy stuff. Of course, it was rejected. But then the smaller $250,000 wiretapping plan seemed almost reasonable in comparison. Okay, next up is another huge trigger that plays on our automatic brain, the principle of scarcity. This one's so simple, but so powerful. You've heard it a million times. Limited time only 2 left. That fear of missing out, or FOMO, is a massive motivator. We are just fundamentally more driven by the idea of losing something than we are by gaining something of the exact same value. And a study with beef buyers shows just how wild this gets. When they were told about a possible beef shortage, their orders doubled. Okay, makes sense. But, and here's the crazy part, when they were also told that this information about the shortage was exclusive and only for them, their orders shot up by 600%. So scarcity is powerful, but scarce information about scarcity is on a whole other level. All right, the final trigger we're going to look at today is maybe the one we run into the most in our daily lives: social proof. Basically, when we're not sure what to do, we just look around and copy what everyone else is doing. I mean, it's why TV sitcoms have laugh tracks to tell you when to laugh. It's why restaurants call a dish the most popular. If everybody's doing it, it must be the right thing to do, right? Well, this shortcut has a really chilling dark side, especially in an emergency. See, when a situation is unclear, we look to others to figure out how to react. The problem is, everybody else is doing the exact same thing. Because we all want to look calm and collected, we glance around and see a bunch of other people just standing there, doing nothing. So we think, oh, I guess it's not a big deal. Meanwhile, they're looking at us and thinking the exact same thing. This creates what's called pluralistic ignorance, where a whole group of people decides it's not an emergency because nobody else is panicking. And this bystander effect can lead to absolute tragedy, as everyone just waits for someone else to act first. So what's the big takeaway here? Look, these mental shortcuts aren't bad. In fact, they're essential. We couldn't get through the day without them. The real goal is to just get better at recognizing when they're being triggered on purpose by someone who might not have your best interests at heart. The best defense is really simple. It's awareness. The next time you feel that pull, that little voice of obligation, or that rush of urgency, just pause. Ask yourself some of these questions. Is this a real favor? Is this thing actually rare? Does this crowd know something I don't? Or are they just a herd? Just taking a second to separate the request from the trick is often all it takes to break the spell and let you make a real choice. Understanding these principles is more than just protecting yourself from being a patsy. It's like getting a new lens to see the world through. The same forces that are used to sell you a new phone can also be used to build a social movement or to encourage public health. Persuasion itself isn't good or bad. The real question isn't whether it's going to be used, but by who and for what. Now that you know the code, how are you going to see the world differently?